It's really kind of distracting, so I don't want to have to like deal with that. And I'm going to turn the light off one more time. One more. Is that bright enough for you, Brian, for your presentation?
Yeah.
Okay. Just because it's hard to pick that up, and then we'll make sure that this is on and works for you. So on. Cool. All right. So towards the sun, make sure it goes like forward, towards that, close back. Let me get over here and set the timer, and then you'll be able to.
Okay.
And you can present up like next to the screen if that's okay.
That's true.
I don't even feel like this doing tennis.
No tennis match. Yeah.
All right. You can start whenever you're ready.
Okay. My project was basically more on how. Wait, should I go towards the?
Wherever you want to be assigned.
Would I have to be in it though?
If you're closer to the screen, that way you'll be in it.
Oh, okay. So my topic was mostly based on about importance of resilience with like peers. What is important to being resilient? Learning to be resilient gives you the mentality of overcoming different obstacles. Having the right mindset would be like a product of being resilient. And it's like this different topics is just like how we should be thinking differently in towards being resilient. How do your peers influence resilience? The ones with strong friendships tend to be more resilient in different situations. As I did more research, it was talking about like dealing with different funerals or like facing different challenges of when they're being bullied or something, then they tend to be more like face it better than rather than having no one with them. Number two, having someone to trust reminds them that they're not alone. They can rely on other people rather than just trying to go through obstacles on their own. And then even a single close friend can bring impact to your resilience. So people will be like, I would have to have multiple friends just to be like have that right mindset. But as I did research, they were just like one single close friend would be like a big impact rather than just trying to deal with it with just one small friendship. So as I talked about more friendships, building trust between people, there's people that are afraid of talking to people, like introverts. So then, in this case, go to places that feel more comfortable. Going at a slow pace for you allows you to build resilience, and then learning how to embrace or overcome fears also have a big impact on building your resilience, rather than just creating the bonds and then have yours. Once you're able to talk to people, you build strong relationships, and the goal is still achieved of building your resilience with people around you. Peer pressure and resilience. Developing resilience at a young age also helps for the future of peer pressure among classmates, workplaces, community areas, and etc. You can build resilience through peer pressure, as in being able to neglect a certain action and learning to know what is right over time. Your thinking changes, and then you build more resilience on it. Peer pressure and the related actions is a format of adversity. The way to foster self-acceptance and worthiness is to build the resilience, which I found by Kid Central. Yeah. This one really helped me through like how to talk about the peer pressure and then the connection between peer pressure and resilience. What can you do? You can hang out with people who support you. It can just be family members. It doesn't necessarily have to be friends or other people that you just know. Find friends that help you grow as a person rather than just staying to yourself. And then number three, choose people who you can depend on. Could be literally anyone that you're close with, family, friends, Arendeny. Uh, oh yeah, do not overbuild resilience. So building resilience is a good thing. Sorry, it's a good thing, but it's not healthy to build too much. Once you come to that point, you've overbuilt resilience, you wouldn't know like when to stop or like when you're achieving unattainable goals. So you're gonna be like basically over persistent on a single goal, but then at some point you wouldn't know that it's not actually possible to achieve that kind of. The effects of too much resilience, like I said earlier, you would be heavily persistent on unrealistic goals. You would burn out, basically, like overload yourself with stuff, and then you're just gonna not be able to do it. Effective leadership can be affected by resilience. So, like, is it? You would want to keep pushing people around you so that you achieve the goals, and then not think of like how that affect on other people actually. And then basically ignoring the true reality that you don't know when to stop. So basically, once you have this being persistent, you wouldn't be able to actually tell what is something achievable or what is not achievable. Difference in POV, I put in How to Build Your Resilience by Making Friends by Beth Payne. She claims having strong friendships with help people deal with difficult situations, while Gail Wagnall states that learning to overcome fear is a big contribution to building resilience. And facing your fears will strengthen your resilience. I put these similar perspectives about resilience illustrate that the people around you can affect how you build your resilience. And then these similar ideas, but different routes prove resilience can be shown and built in different pathways. Promoting peace throughout the world. Overall, finding strong relationships and building trust with people is the best solution to building resilience, considering the people you are with. Because even having just one strong relationship with one person will allow you to be mentally safe, and then it'll remind you that you're not alone going through. How does this relate to the stimulus materials? So basically, one of them talks about the Haiti survivors. They said that going through all this stuff they went through, the earthquake, they still try to do their best to make the best out of their situation and still push through. And then it also relates to the dark side of resilience, which talks about how when you're just basically over persistent, you wouldn't know when to stop, and then you're basically just pushing yourself over and over again. So that basically goes between two different stimulus materials. And then that's my sources.
Great, good job. Thank you. I do have a few self-defense questions for you to answer. So my first question. What evidence did you gather that you didn't use? And why did you choose not to use it?
So when it talked about when you build resilience and then you fight through peer pressure, I found that as evidence, but I didn't really want to insert that because it doesn't really add on to what I'm talking about, because I want you to build resilience with your peers rather than building it before you feel the effects of peer pressure.
And my next question is about your argument. What advice would you have for other researchers who are researching this topic?
Probably explore like a lot more sources, because like when I saw like just 2 or 3, it didn't really explain much to me. So then when I researched like different questions relating to the topic, it actually helped me with most of the part.
Is there a specific type of source or area or anything like that you think they should look towards?
The ones when I found more reliable for me was like when I put in resilience and trust or others, or when it's talking about like peer pressure and resilience, and then I just searched up more like relationships between them, and then it helped me find all the answers.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Good job. Okay, you can go water in. Yeah, there's no such. Hey.
Was he gonna do it? Bro.
Do you want me to put the door stop in the back door and you can text them that they can come in the back door, or would that be distracting? Okay, so they're not really. I'll put the door stop in the back door. So is that okay with you doing the presentation? Okay.
About 3.
Bryan, you need your
Me?
Yeah. Because of like the stimulus package, the stimulus package, the stimulus package, and then this is like your last slide before you were playing.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah.
like when you got to it, like you got to it, but I was like, stimulus package, basically about the stimulus package.
Oh, shoot. Okay, let's look real quick. The light, the button. And then. Yeah. And then the light is all
So this
The last-
is next one.
and then the button all the way at the bottom. Good luck.
Just wondered if you did that. So Emma, whenever you're ready, you can begin.
Hi, my name is Emma Chavez, and the title of my presentation is Sustainability and You. The research question that I will be tackling in my research and that has led me in this presentation is sustainable shopping possible for the common consumer? Now, possible I defined as able to be done in a way that does not sacrifice the common consumer's financial state or their overall quality of life, which includes the environment as an extension of such. And the common consumer is defined as you and me. You and I are similar in our need to shop. We have to shop for clothes and for other necessities, but in terms of shopping for clothes, shopping can be defined as thrifting, retail shopping, or just simply sifting through a pile of clothes that our family gave us. And in this, we are the common consumer. Now, as I began to approach my research question, I looked into the influx of sustainable shopping in the market. Larger companies such as H&M and Zara are known for their lack of sustainability in manufacturing and greenwashing in their advertising process. This has led to a greater understanding and opened conversation of sustainability in these larger companies. This has led to these companies and similar companies to be more transparent in their manufacturing and advertising process, as well as the public being more open to conversation about their consumption habits. In a report done by an online secondhand shopping store called ThredUp, they noted that there was a 60% increase of new shoppers in the secondhand shopping market. This company also expected that the sustainable shopping market in the secondhand area specifically is to double by 2026. In relation to sustainability, I looked into current consumer habits. I looked into current consumer habits and similar studies. A similar study to mine tracked consumers' habits in behavior and intention when it comes to sustainable clothing. They conducted a research to analyze intention and behavior in correlation to the larger issues of sustainability having an overall lack of information. The study gathered much qualitative data to determine the population's beliefs on an issue. The results showed a large gap between purchase intention and purchase behavior, as people appeared to not apply their understanding of sustainability, regardless of that level of understanding, to their shopping behavior. This study has led me to question other factors that have influenced the results of my study. For example, gender and age play a large role in the intention behind behavior. For example, in 2017, a poll ran for women between the ages 18 and 25 showed that 41% of women feel the pressure to wear a new outfit every day, as well as the previously mentioned threaded market increase showed that 61% of their new shoppers were millennial and Gen Z. In my own understandings and observations of the market, I have found an influx of social media attempts to grab at this new sustainable market. For example, we have seen an increase in online content in secondhand shopping with blogs, Instagram posts, and YouTube videos, glorifying secondhand shopping and the like in thrifting hauls and similar content, as seen by this YouTuber, Best Dress, who has made a brand and her own following and profit off of the secondhand market. Lucky for me, I found a strong theoretical backbone to support my research. The theory of planned behavior, coined by Ikek Asjen, is an extension of the theory of reasoned action, which evaluates subjects who have incomplete volitional control. In both theories, intention is quintessential into why someone performs a behavior. However, in the theory of planned behavior, it addressed the degree to which non-motivational factors such as time, money, and the cooperation of other people have in respect to an individual's actual control over their behavior. This is addressed through the three tenets of intention, which are as shown on the screen: attitude, subjective norms, and perceived behavioral control. With this knowledge, I began a hunt for the ideal research method. While I constructed a number of small surveys, interviews, and smaller observational data, I reached a good point with a qualitative survey. The survey I conducted used convenient sampling creating the survey, which I posted to my Instagram, which at the time of this post had 321 followers and a subsequent 253 views of the post. This is convenient sampling, as this 321 person selected population was easily accessible to me, and in turn, the subjects were easily selected. Arguably, there is a degree of slight random selection in that some of the people who viewed my post reposted it to their own accounts, to their own population of followers without my suggestion, which helped a lot in garnering a larger population and more participation. In this survey, I used Ashton's theory of planned behavior to evaluate my subjects' attitude towards shopping, their belief subjective norm, and their degree of perceived behavioral control. Some of the limitations that I had when I started my survey and throughout this research was smaller sample size, a limited sample diversity, and time. I will admit my failed attempts at finding other research strategies had not wasted my time, but slightly wasted my time. And though I am pleased to make an improvement with what data I was able to gather, I do wish I could have used more of that time to gather more data. Going into my survey, I broke it down into 5 different sections. The first one being sample demographics, second being attitude towards behavior, third, subjective norm, fourth, degree of perceived behavioral control, and 5, subject reflection. So starting with sample demographics, I began with asking my participants their age and their gender identity. As you can see, 80% of my sample were women, or identified as female, this being 24 people, and 66.7% being between the ages 10 and 18 years old. In terms of the section attitude towards behavior, I saw it necessary to identify the shopping process as 2 different parts. The subjects answered the following questions, with 1 being not at all, 3 being feeling neutral, and 5 being I enjoy it very much, or the similar response. So the first portion of the shopping process that I identified was a generalized action of shopping, which was buying and receiving clothes, and window shopping or browsing online. As we can see that there is a strong connection to the shopping process, as many people enjoy it a lot more than not doing it. For the second part, I defined the second part of the shopping process to be specifically centered around sustainability. And we can overall, I see that a more confused consensus over sustainable shopping, and that in this chart, we can see that there's a heavier support for neutral, or I feel mildly content with secondhand shopping at 63.3%, while this one had heavier support for not feeling active or neutral in their participation in climate change efforts through fashion. In this next section, subjective norm, subjects were asked 4 questions, free response, in hopes for more honest opinions. Subjective norm tackles an individual's independent decision-making process and how it affects their behavior. So to just quickly go through the questions, I asked on average, how long do you wait before getting rid of a piece of clothing? And the consensus was between 1 to 5 years. The next question was, on average, how often do you rewear a piece of clothing? The consensus was about once every week. And for the third question, on average, how consistent are you to a certain brand or style of clothing? The consensus was little to no consistency. And this last question was in relation to the first, which only had 8 responses because it was optional and had to be paired with the last question. There was no general consensus in the type of brand or style many people were loyal to. Overall, we can conclude that there are many similarities between an individual's independent decisions, which fall within generally the same range. We can see a consistency in the decision-making process when it comes to sustainable clothing practices, which is getting rid of clothes and re-wearing clothes. We can identify that individuals want to get the most use out of the products that they do have, though there is no consistency when it comes to brand loyalty and unique style. I believe this speaks to the discrepancies in age, gender, and social media influence, which will be explored in the next section. The next section is perceived behavioral control. This section evaluates the degree of perceived behavioral control in sustainable shopping in 3 different questions. These questions assess the autonomy subjects feel over their shopping habits in similar fashion to the first section, with 1 being not at all, 3 being neutral feelings, and 5 being most likely and similar responses. These questions assume that the subjects enjoy shopping and do it often in hopes of garnering a better understanding of this population's beliefs in shopping. As a majority of participants feel that they have control over what they want to wear, they also feel neutral feelings on external influences on their shopping. Now, this last question was particularly interesting to me because it resulted in varied responses. It notes, how much more likely are you to buy a similar piece of clothing secondhand than from a retail store at the same price? We can see that there are a variety of responses, but a majority of participants fall at 53.3% as they feel they will not buy a similar piece of clothing secondhand if they could buy it retail at the same price. This was interesting in the way that it did not align with the first section, attitudes towards behaviors results, with the majority of participants in those results feeling that they feel more content with a secondhand piece of clothing or product, while when they answered this question, they would much rather not. In addition, the addition of price at the end of this question suggests that the driving force of secondhand shopping was lower prices rather than a feeling of accomplishment in sustainability efforts. As for the last section, subject reflection questions, I asked 2 questions with a free response to allow full flow of thought. My first question was, in greater detail, how has social media impacted how you buy, get rid of, and wear clothes? I wanted to assess more specifically the perceived amount of social media's effects on sustainability habits, which are, as detailed in this question, buying, getting rid of, and wearing clothes. For buying, I wanted to include some compelling responses that I got from subjects. This one reads, social media has inspired me to thrift more, but other than that, it hasn't impacted my choices much. This person also says, looking at trends can open up my shopping to things I don't normally try or buy. As for getting rid of, it notes, I wouldn't say it's impacted me too much. Most of my old clothes I'll hand down to my younger cousins or drop them off at a thrift store. While this one says, in terms of getting rid of, social trends have made me stop wearing things faster due to no longer being fashionable or trendy. As for wearing clothes, I usually just wear whatever makes me happy. And social media doesn't really impact how I buy or get rid of, but it can inspire on how I wear my outfits. I try to adjust how comfortable I am with myself and my body. Now for these, yes. Now these responses suggest a small change in habits with the influence of social media, as they have slightly increased the amount of clothes they buy and wear, but their habits haven't changed in terms of getting rid of clothes. Now, in this last question, I asked, is there anything you would change about your shopping habits? If so, please elaborate. I asked this question in hopes to predict future planned behavior. Some particularly compelling responses were this one that states, I'm very active in thrifting in comparison to buying retail. I do wish I could buy less from places such as Shein when I am looking for something specific on a budget. Unfortunately, I end up doing so on a time crunch due to inaffordability of more sustainable fashion that is not secondhand. And this one that says, I wish I could stop this addiction. I constantly have clothes in different carts on different tabs, saved in my search engines at any given time on all devices. I am always shopping. Both participants note shopping for clothes as an unavoidable task. They note quicker accessibility to fast fashion rather than sustainable fashion. And this begs to question, if fast fashion will continually outpace sustainable fashion, will this just encourage the sustainable fashion market to turn their head on sustainability completely in hopes of competing with fast fashion? In conclusion, going back to my research question, is sustainable shopping possible for the common consumer? Based on my data and my research, I have found that no, it's not possible. But there is hope. There is hope in the implications of my research findings. While we can note the success of fast fashion marketing in comparison to sustainable fashion marketing, I believe that the results gathered in my research provide insight into growing conversations over the environment and overconsumption culture. We have seen an increase in overconsumption culture in America, and the influence that social media has greatly had on people of younger ages and of the female gender. We can see that a lot of my research does tackle different issues on sustainability and gives a general idea of how people feel about their shopping behavior and their sustainability efforts. Here's my works cited, and thank you for listening to my presentation.
Good job. Thank you very much for your presentation. I do have a couple oral questions to ask you about your presentation. So the first question is going to be about your research and your inquiry process. What was one obstacle or challenge you encountered while implementing your research method, and how did you address it?
That's a wonderful question. Thank you. I think one problem that I definitely had, that I mentioned before, was that I did have a lot of ideas when it came to the kind of research I wanted to conduct. I wanted to conduct research over time, but I found that didn't help in what I was trying to achieve because it didn't show intention behind behavior. Instead, it showed just behavior. Another obstacle that I had was trying to get as varied of responses as possible, where even though I had convenient sampling, I wasn't trying to interrupt that process. So I just kind of had to sit and pray that a varied number of people were opening my survey, which did not help me in the long run, but I am glad with the results that I was able to have.
Thank you very much. My next question is just about the depth of understanding in your research. What additional questions emerged during your research? Based on your experience, what advice would you give to other researchers who are investigating these questions?
I think some additional questions that came up in the process was exploring the true extent of social media in fast fashion, though I did touch on it because I wanted to look into people's first initial thoughts on fashion and in relation to social media. I did have a lot of questions on how, honestly, my subjects were answering the survey because I do feel there is a pressure on my survey to show me as a researcher that they were being as sustainable as possible. Though I was trying to word my questions to make it as neutral as possible, I do feel that some people tried to sound more sustainable and they didn't tell me their true intention when it comes to social media. And sorry, the second part of that question?
So how would other researchers use this information, or how could they follow up?
I think other researchers could use this information and follow up through having a more neutral stance on everything. I think, though I did try to be as neutral as possible, there were places where I could have improved, and that can definitely be taken on by people replicating my research.
Thank you. And the final question is just a reflection on your inquiry process. If you had 3 more months to work on this research question or project, what additional research strategies would you put into place or practice?
Some additional research strategies. Though I used a survey to gather my data for this research, I think I would have liked to pair that with a longer stint of observation. For example, one of the attempts to gather data that didn't really flow as well as I thought it would was I compiled a list of general clothing items that I owned, and I paired that against general pieces of clothing that I owned that were thrifted or secondhand. And I wanted to compare over time if I truly wore secondhand pieces of clothing more than I wore things I bought in a retail store. And I wanted to run that research through me first so then I can give it to a larger sample. If I had an extra 3 months, I would have totally done that and perfected that process.
Thank you. Excellent job. Thank you for your presentation. So, Arendeny, are you cool going at the start of 3rd period just because I don't want the bells to interrupt you? Okay. Cool. What do you think, Bryan? You ready to do that next year?